Okay, picture this. You're driving up, winding your way towards the summit of Haleakala in Maui. The view is just incredible, like
Yeah.
something from another planet.
It really is spectacular.
Then you make the turn, you start coming down, and suddenly that amazing view comes with this little nagging thought.
Mm.
This road is seriously steep.
It is.
And one of the dangers, maybe less obvious, but very real, your brakes just giving out.
Exactly, yeah. And that's what we're diving into today, how to handle those really significant downhill drives safely.
Right.
We're using Haleakala's Crater Road as our main example because, well, it's pretty extreme.
Right.
Our mission, really, is to give you the knowledge you need to avoid what could be a genuinely scary situation, losing your brakes on a mountain.
Okay.
So we'll get into the mechanics, why brakes overheat, and the actual techniques you can use to stay in control.
And we're drawing from a specific source for this.
Yes, we've got this really detailed guide that focuses specifically on driving Haleakala safely, especially if you're in a rental car, which many visitors are.
Got it. So why Haleakala? What makes coming down that road such a potential torture test for brakes? It sounds dramatic, but I guess the numbers tell the story.
Oh, they really do. The thing that's striking is the sheer amount of vertical drop in such a short distance. The guide points out you lose 6,500 feet in elevation over about 5 miles as the crow flies. Now, the road winds a bit more naturally.
There's the poochbacks and all that.
Right. But even so, in the steepest parts, you're dropping over like 300 vertical feet for every mile you drive forward.
Wow.
Which averages out to about a 6% grade overall. And the guide stresses some bits are even steeper than that.
Okay, 6% grade.
Yeah.
What does that actually mean in, real terms?
It means for every 100 feet you travel horizontally, you go down 6 feet vertically.
Right.
And sustained over miles. That makes it one of the most significant continuous elevation drops on a public road anywhere in the U.S., basically.
Okay, that definitely paints a picture. It's not just a gentle hill. And this guide we're using, it lists, 5 pretty nasty things that can happen if you're leaning too hard on that brake pedal coming down?
Yeah, 5 specific negative consequences. Let's walk through them.
Okay.
The first one, probably the most common, is brake pad fade.
Fade. Okay.
So you use your brakes too much, they generate a ton of heat from friction.
Makes sense.
If those pads get hotter than they're designed for, they can get kind of glazed, slippery. They lose their grip on the rotors. So it doesn't matter how hard you push the pedal at that point, your stopping power is way down.
Okay, that sounds
immediately
unsettling.
It is. It shows, that every part has its limits, and pushing past them, well, performance drops off.
Right. What's next on this lovely list?
Next up is brake fluid boil. This one's even more serious.
Boiling fluid.
Yeah, that same extreme heat from braking too much can actually make the brake fluid itself boil inside the lines. When that happens, you get vapor bubbles forming, and gas, unlike liquid, is compressible.
Right.
So you push the pedal and you're just compressing bubbles instead of pushing fluid. You can lose pedal pressure completely.
So no brakes.
Pretty much. Again, you just can't slow down effectively, or maybe at all.
Okay, these are escalating fast. The next one is fire. That sounds like worst case scenario stuff.
It is an extreme outcome, yeah. But it's a real possibility if the brakes are overused really severely for a long time.
Wow.
The parts in the brake system, the pads, rotors, fluid, can get so incredibly hot they actually reach their ignition point and catch fire.
Jeez.
And as the guide points out, that's obviously incredibly dangerous. A fire there could easily spread to the whole car.
Definitely want to avoid that one. Okay, what else? The last two sound maybe less immediately catastrophic, but still not great.
Correct. The last two are brake shudder and brake pad glazing. These are more about lasting damage.
Shudder, like shaking.
Yeah, brake shudder can happen even after just moderate overheating. You hit the brakes and you feel this noticeable shake or vibration through the steering wheel. The guide notes it might not be immediately dangerous, but it's definitely disconcerting and probably really annoying for the next person who rents that car.
Yeah, no kidding.
And importantly, it often means the brake rotors have actually warped from the heat. That's permanent damage, needs new pads and new rotors to fix it.
So someone could inherit a problem caused by the last driver just riding the brakes down the mountain. Good to know if you ever feel that shudder yourself. What about glazing?
Brake pad glazing, we sort of touched on it with fade. It's when the pad surface gets so hot it basically turns smooth and glass-like, vitrifies.
Okay.
You might still get some braking, but it'll be way less effective than it should be. You'll probably have to push the pedal much harder.
Right.
And you might hear nasty scraping or grinding sounds too, like shudder, it's lasting damage, needs new parts.
Okay, so the big picture is clear. Just relying on your brakes alone on that kind of long, steep downhill is, well, it's risky, could be dangerous, could just cost you money later.
Absolutely.
So what should we be doing? The signs always say use low gear, but I feel like that's something a lot of drivers, maybe myself included sometimes, kind of ignore or don't fully get.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is how many people think those signs are just for, like, big trucks.
Right, semis and stuff?
Exactly. But our source is really emphatic about this. Using a lower gear on steep hills is crucial for all vehicles, cars, SUVs, vans, whatever. Doesn't matter the size.
Okay, that's a really important point to make clear. But for those of us maybe not super familiar, what exactly does putting it in low gear actually do for you in this situation?
So this is all about engine braking.
Engine braking.
Okay. When you shift into a lower gear, you're basically using the engine itself to help control your speed.
How does that work?
The engine naturally resists being spun faster than its current speed allows in that gear. This resistance creates a drag, a slowing effect on the drivetrain and therefore on the wheels.
I see.
So it significantly cuts down on how much you need to use your actual friction brakes. It's more about managing the car's energy proactively with the engine instead of just trying to burn it all off as heat with the brakes.
That makes a lot of sense. The engine's helping slow you down.
Yeah.
Is there like a rule of thumb for when you should shift down? How do you know?
The guide gives a really practical, easy to remember one.
Okay.
If you find your foot is on the brake pedal more than half the time for over a minute, so say you're braking for 2 seconds, off for 2, brake for 2, off for 2, or braking 3 seconds out of every 6. Anything like that pattern.
Got it.
You are definitely over-braking. You should shift down to a lower gear.
That's a really concrete guideline. Easy to check yourself. But I can definitely imagine a lot of drivers, even experienced ones, feeling maybe a bit unsure about manually shifting gears in an automatic.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially in a rental car you're not familiar with. I remember once coming down a steep road, feeling the brakes get a bit spongy. And really wishing I knew exactly how to use the lower gears properly.
That's a super common feeling, and the source actually calls this out directly. It says loads of drivers, even with years on the road, just aren't sure how or when to do it.
Yeah.
Or they have this mistaken idea that you're not supposed to or can't in an automatic car. It's a real gap in basic driving knowledge for a lot of people.
So what's the advice for listeners who might be thinking, yeah, that's me?
The guide gives the best advice, honestly. Check your car's owner's manual.
A manual, right?
It might seem basic, but those manuals always have sections on the gear selector and how to use lower gears for engine braking. It's considered fundamental for safe driving.
Okay.
The source even jokes that just looking at the pictures of the gear lever can be a good start.
Huh. Okay, visual aids. But practically speaking, how do you actually do it? Shifting down in an automatic while you're already rolling downhill, does it jerk the car or anything?
Generally, no. It's designed to be smooth. You use the gear selector lever. Besides P, R, N, D, most automatics have numbers like 3, 2, 2, and point. Now maybe an L for low.
Right.
While you're in D, drive, and moving, you can usually just pull the lever back or down into one of those lower positions.
Okay.
The goal is to pick a gear where the car's speed settles at a comfortable level without you needing to keep hitting the brakes.
So it just kind of holds the speed back.
Exactly. You'll probably hear the engine revs go up, the engine sound gets louder.
Yeah.
But that's normal. That's the engine doing the work, slowing you down. 3 might lock out gears above third. 2 thicket locks out gears above second. L might keep you in first. It gives you progressively more engine braking power.
So you might need to try different ones depending on how steep it is.
Precisely. You'd maybe shift to 3 first, see how it feels. Still too fast. Try 2. You find the gear that matches the slope and the speed you want to maintain. Gently experiment.
Okay, that's really clear, practical advice. Hopefully knowing this helps people avoid trouble. But what if the worst happens? What if, despite everything, someone does feel their brakes failing? What should they do right then and there?
Yeah, this is absolutely critical info to have in your head. If you suddenly realize your main brakes aren't working, the guide says 3 immediate steps.
Okay.
1, use the emergency brake. or parking brake. It's usually a separate mechanical system. It might not stop you instantly, but it will provide some slowing force.
Right, the handbrake or pedal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
2, shift to the lowest possible gear immediately. Even if the main brakes are gone, that engine braking we talked about will still help slow the vehicle down significantly.
Okay, emergency brake, low gear.
And 3, as soon as it's safe, steer off the road, get to the shoulder side of the road, anywhere safe, and start completely. Then just wait. Let the brakes cool down.
Right.
Sometimes, if it was just overheating, they might recover some function once they cool off.
Wow. Okay, those 3 steps. Emergency brake, low gear, pull over safely. Definitely worth remembering.
Absolutely vital.
It's also interesting that the source mentions some rental companies, like the one providing the guide, are actually doing things proactively to reduce this risk on Haleakala.
Yes, that was quite noteworthy, their preventative approach.
What are they doing?
They specifically mention using ceramic brake pads. These are designed to resist heat better than standard pads, so they're less likely to fade.
Okay.
They also use DOT4 brake fluid. It has a higher boiling point than the standard DOT3 fluid, which helps prevent that fluid boil issue we discussed.
Makes sense.
And lastly, they do regular brake system bleeding that makes sure the fluid is clean, free of moisture or air bubbles that could mess with performance.
So they're really tailoring their maintenance for that specific challenging environment.
Exactly. It's kind of above and beyond standard maintenance, recognizing the unique stress that descent puts on vehicles.
Okay, so let's just quickly recap the main takeaways here.
Yeah.
When you're coming down a really steep road like Haleakala, you absolutely have to respect your brakes limits. Leaning on them too hard can cause anything from temporary fade to permanent damage or even, fire.
Right. Big range of bad outcomes.
And the key to avoiding this is using engine braking. That means shifting into and staying in a lower gear.
Mm-hmm.
Remember that rule of thumb? Foot on the brake more than half the time over a minute, time to shift down.
Definitely.
And heaven forbid, if your brakes do fail, emergency brake, low gear, pull over safely, and wait.
That's the essence of it. And it's really important for people to realize this isn't just about driving down a volcano in Hawaii, right? These principles using lower gears, understanding brake limits, they apply to any steep downhill anywhere.
Sure. Any mountain pass, steep city hill.
Exactly. Knowing this stuff just makes you a safer driver overall, and yeah, it could save you some expensive repair bills down the line too. Hopefully understanding the why makes the how feel more intuitive.
Absolutely. It really is one of those aha moments, isn't it? Where something seemingly small, like which gear you're in, suddenly clicks as having huge safety implications.
Yeah, it really does.
Which kind of leads to a final thought.
Okay.
We've spent this time really digging into the mechanics of safely driving down a mountain, focusing on the limits of just one system in our car, the brakes. But think about how often we use other complex systems every day. Appliances, technology we rely on, without maybe fully understanding their limits or how they might fail.
That's a really interesting point.
What other everyday situations, maybe seemingly simple ones, might actually benefit if we took a moment to understand the underlying mechanics or principles just a little bit better?